All right, we're live. Welcome to the Parts Girl Live. I have my co-host with me, Russell Hill with Fixed Ops Marketing. Welcome, Russell.
Hello, welcome. I'm happy to be here.
And we have our special guest, Rusty Stewart. Welcome, Rusty.
Hey, welcome. Thank you.
And I'm really excited to have you on the show because you were just at the Mopar Service and Parts Conference.
That's right.
And so not a lot of people get to go out and go to conferences. So I wanted to bring you in to talk about everything that you learned and how that experience went. So yeah, do you get to go to conferences a lot, or are there a lot of conferences to go to for you?
There can be. Sometimes it seems kind of seasonal. You start getting into the later part of the year, you've got different things going on. It can be anything from like the Chrysler Service and Parts Conference, or you got SEMA that comes around, and of course NADA and all those. So it can get kind of busy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the busy season.
I got to tell you, I missed last year and I missed this year. I heard phenomenal things, which you look forward to you sharing with us, Rusty. But I can tell you right now, I'm not missing next year at all. Period.
Me either.
Well, I do highly recommend it. I went year before last when they had it. It was really good. That was my first time going. It was a great experience. I have to give kudos where it's due. They put a lot of effort, and I'm sure they spend a lot of money also in having the best experience they can for the dealers. It's held at a very nice resort in Florida, in Orlando. It's at one of the Disney resorts. It's Coronado Springs. The hospitality is wonderful. I've really enjoyed the food. The food was great. It wasn't just hotel food. It was actually really good.
That's great.
Yeah, and they have good entertainment too. There's lots of music going on, and it's business oriented, but it's fun.
Entertainment's good. I got to ask something. This is probably the single most important question for this whole thing. Did you see Mickey Mouse? That's all I want to know.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see Mickey that trip. I didn't.
Was he there though?
You know what? I don't recall seeing him there at all. I didn't hear of him being there. However, now that you say that, though, the last time that we were there, Mickey and Minnie made an appearance. So
wow,
I just missed him this time. Maybe I was at the vendor expo whenever he came around.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's talk about the vendor expo. How was that? Was it exciting? Did you feel like you got a lot out of connecting with the vendors?
Absolutely. It's a really good format. It's done after the meeting is done for the day, so the evening time is spent doing the expo. I'll have to say, in comparison to like SEMA or NADA, it feels more relaxed. I don't know why that would be exactly. Maybe it's just that the vendors don't feel quite as pressured because they're not trying to catch everybody as they're just passing through, where everybody's kind of hanging out, enjoying being there, getting to spend some good time learning about the products. It's benefited our dealership in the past. We've gotten, matter of fact, our DMS system actually came from year before last conference. So yeah, it's really good. That also happens to be whenever dinner gets served, and there's some drinks had here and there too. So it's a fun time. It really is.
It's really cool that they do it after everything, so you can kind of relax and connect, and it's more of a networking rather than chasing people down to get a demo.
Yeah, and one thing they did this year that was really fun. So they had a contest going throughout the last quarter that was based on CSI, and dealers were selected. I think they did they randomly selected some dealers if they met certain criteria, and they had a money booth, and the representative getting the money booth, and you get all this cash just flowing around them, and they're trying to grab it and everything. It was so funny watching it.
Yeah, I've seen that before. Yeah,
I've never seen that. I don't think I've heard of it, but I've never seen it live happening. Did anyone actually get money out of it?
Yes. Yeah, a colleague of mine, he walked out of there with almost $600. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, I'm thinking to myself, even though I didn't feel like I would end up in the booth, I still had a strategy for it. So I'm thinking, I wonder how it would look if I took my shirt off and
I was just thinking that
cash with my shirt. I had a plan.
Have a bag, trying to catch it all.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all the rules would be, but I was really going to try.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about, I'm assuming they have workshops, right? Or sessions. What
We
were
do.
like the top, I guess, top 3 things that you got from the sessions, or your favorite thing that they talked about?
So they had a couple things. For one, part of the meeting is they have keynote speakers that they invite in. There were some really good speakers. There was before too. They really go all out on that. They had some really good professionals that were there. A lot of Hall of Fame speakers. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't even realize there was a Hall of Fame for speakers, but they found them. So people like Mark Sanborn was there. He talked on like business practices, how to essentially stand back and look at your business from a different perspective. Really, when you start hearing these things, it seems like, oh man, that makes so much sense. And then you start realizing this isn't really complex stuff here, but because you get in the minutia of every day, it's easy to lose track of these things. And so it gives you an opportunity outside of the office environment. You're not on the service drive or on the parts counter. And so you're able to take a different perspective on it. It's a more calm approach, and you're having somebody give you insight that you may not have thought of otherwise. And so it gives you a better perspective. Definitely some best practices that you can bring back and apply, share with the team. I'm a big note taker, so I like taking notes and bullet points of things that I'm hearing. Like to have a meeting when we get back to recap everything with everyone. Let's see, there was Connie Podesta, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She touched on like personality traits. That was really interesting. It was interactive. She had people stand up. She'd give you like 3 shapes to envision, like a square, a triangle, a circle, and whichever one pops in your mind first, then that's your sign, that's your shape. And if you're a square, you'd stand up, and then you get an assessment of the room of who all was a square, and then
What shape did you pick?
I actually ended up being a triangle. It wasn't the most popular, but it wasn't the least. It was right in the middle. And with that, she has like a personality assessment that she can touch on with that of kind of what makes you tick.
Just from taking out a triangle?
I'm sorry?
Just from a triangle?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It reminded me of the old the ink block test. That's what
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see here? I see spaghetti or something, but
that one. Okay.
Yeah. So she's, and of course, it's not detailed by person; it's more generic, but it does give you some overall insight. And with that, she kind of goes into, all right, so this is how this person feels the way they do, so it's easier to understand them, so you can connect with them, which in turn equals how you can manage this person if they work with you or interact with them in the workplace. Easily can see how it would help with employees, possibly even customers. So it's very relevant. All of them were very relevant in what they talked about.
That's very relevant. I think that's probably really important. I just think that it's great to be able to identify what type of personality someone is, so that you can understand them better. So you're not just assuming they're just like you.
Yep. I'm a big Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People buff. And one of the things that's always resonated with me is seek first to understand, then be understood. So if you understand what makes a person think, feel, and act the way they do, then you can then in turn interact with them better at their level, so you're more effective with them.
Absolutely.
So I see these things as a direct correlation with how they can be applied in connecting with people. And especially in this day and age, that's very much needed.
Oh, yeah. My favorite one is starting with the end in mind.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good one. And one other speaker that I definitely have to give a shout out to was Jason Dorsey. Jason is he's phenomenal. He was at the last conference. I've listened to some podcasts that he's been on before too. Jason specializes in different generations. So your Gen Zs, your Gen X, your Boomers. I recently learned that Gen Z is also being called Zoomers. I thought that was interesting. He went into that actually as far as Gen Z's starting to be considered more similar to the Boomers. And so how when you understand, just like the personality traits, why they think, feel, and act the way they do about things, especially when you are a generation that's further apart from another one. It can be very difficult to understand, well, why wouldn't you want to get here early every day? Why wouldn't you want to, put in a 12-hour day? And if you're getting paid commission, why wouldn't you want to be the top salesperson? And all these different things that may make a lot of sense to your generation. And it helps you understand that, albeit that's important, it may not be what's most important to that person. And so understanding that plus what is gives you that opportunity to connect with them.
Yeah.
And he does a phenomenal job for that. He owns a company that specializes in that. So definitely was good to hear him.
It sounds like it. I'm that generation. Why wouldn't you want to show up early? Well, why wouldn't you want to make more money? Well, you would, but there's other obviously contributing factors.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is great, offering that kind of insight. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm just glad they're not picking on millennials anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that did get brought up.
Oh, it did
get brought up. Yeah. And he has a lot of interesting facts because they do a lot of research, and he's got some really fascinating statistics about generations. One thing that he mentioned that I'd like to mention was he said that with Gen Z, that an hour flexibility in their workday, coming in an hour later or leaving an hour earlier, whatever the case may be, is the equivalent to them as being off on Fridays.
Wow.
That was really impactful, I thought.
Enlightening, Rusty. That was awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I'm thinking, hey, I'm of the nature that if you gave me all Friday, I would much rather take that than just being able to flex my hour.
Interesting.
That's the difference.
See the different way people think. Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. So,
what about parts? Did they talk about parts?
Yeah,
they did. Yes, they did. As a matter of fact, I was very impressed. They give out this booklet that is kind of your agenda. It's got the schedule for everything. It's got some summaries of the speakers and some different articles in there. And I noticed that you actually made an appearance in that book.
And I didn't know that till you sent it to me. So.
Oh, you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did not know that it was going to be in the book.
That's awesome.
You sure were. Yeah, you had an article in there. It was talking about dealers and, of course, inventory and the struggles with it and what they can do with it. So
the parts girl knows. I'm telling you.
That's right.
Well, hopefully next year I'll be there and I'll get to talk about it.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And then we had different breakout sessions in addition to the speakers. So they would be specialized sessions that would be focused on parts or service. They did have some segments that were more dealer GM oriented. I focused more on the parts and service classes. It went hand in hand with the overall theme of the conference, and it's about improving your overall business, whether it be through relationships or business practices. You really could feel that their effort is they want to see the dealers do better. So that's refreshing to have that. It's good to have a manufacturer that wants to support you. And I felt like that was definitely the effort there. So the parts breakouts, they touched on some things like they mentioned they've got a new chemical company they've partnered with, Petra. They have a all makes line that they're having a bit of a resurgence with. B Pro is what they're referring to it as. They touched on their glass programs, the various benefits of using these programs, if it fits your particular dealer's business model or not. Talked a lot about fleet business, learned an interesting statistic about that. Stated that the average RO for a fleet customer is about $890 total.
Hey,
I thought that was interesting.
Fascinating.
That's really.
Yeah, I think that was definitely noteworthy. Caught my attention. But yeah, they do a good job with that piece of it for sure.
So, what out of everything? I feel like when you go to conferences, it's a great way to get away and really get your mind out of the like day to day. But then how do you implement everything? Like, what's your strategy to figure out how do you organize everything that you learned?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that's a overall practice that defines all of us really in a certain way. It's hard to take such a vast amount of information. It's like you're drinking from that fire hose,
Sure.
and it's one thing to process it. It's another thing to execute it. So in our case here at our store, one thing that I've been doing with our team, we're actually in the very early stages of this, is we're looking at a program called the 4 Disciplines of Execution. So far, that seems to be very intriguing for us. It's relevant to what we struggle with. And it's just like what you mentioned. How do you implement all this great information, all these best practices? How do you put that into your day-to-day business? And it's not like a light switch that you flip and all of a sudden now it happens. If that were the case, everybody would be doing it.
That's right.
It's how do you incrementally create change that doesn't create a negative disruption. You want a positive disruption. And of course, you have to have buy-in with that.
Absolutely.
And then one of the struggles that I know I've had is staying with something. It's great whenever it's fresh. You've got everything flowing. You got those good juices flowing. It's the dopamine effect happening. Oh, yeah, this is good stuff. We're going to do this. And you have that push to do it. And it's really strong for the first couple of weeks. And then life happens. And today, we may not have that be the top of our mind because we're dealing with this urgent and important matter.
Right.
Then the next day rolls in. It's like, oh, yeah, we need to get back on that. So we'll do a little bit with it. And then slowly over time, it starts to fade. And then next thing you know, you look a year back and it's like, what happened? So we're trying very hard to have a strategy it's for the long game. We want to make these changes so they're sustained long term for the best interest of ourselves and our customers. So more to follow on that, but so far so good.
Rusty,
you got something. Yeah, go ahead, Russell.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I know. You have a question.
As far as like technology, was there? Oh, there's Angela Willoughby. Hello, Angela. She's awesome. She is the fixed ops analyst for Foundation. She's awesome.
And she's right. Consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, she is. She's a hammer. But she's a sweetheart too. I better get that right. Let me get off that. Hey, Rusty.
Okay.
As far as AI and technology, did that come up at all? And is there anything that stood out, or a couple things that stood out about where parts and service might be going?
They didn't really go into a whole lot of AI in terms of parts. Now, as far as technology, of course, EVs were brought up. Expected to hear
course,
EVs,
right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I noticed that what they tended to say a lot was, we may not have been first to the party, but we're going to be the best dressed at the party. So they made it known a couple of years ago that they were going to see how things went first. They weren't going to be the pioneer of EVs. They were open about that. So their strategy was, let's see how it goes. If that's the direction that we think we're going to go full bore in that case. They did actually show a slight preview. It wasn't a real in-depth preview. I believe that's going to happen later on in California at a dealer meeting. Mm-hmm. But they did show a highlight of a new Challenger. And I'll tell you, just from the little bit I saw, it did look very impressive. It was, I guess, as close as what you consider as a high-performance EV. It looked good.
Interesting. Think about a Charger EV. I don't know. Where's that rumble? Where's that?
I was just gonna say, you lose that rumble. That's the sad part.
And that was what they were getting at. They were taking the approach of, hey, we're known for high performance. We're Mopar. We're that big block engine. We're all about a lot of horsepower. So how do you take that and turn it into EV? And I'm eager to see what the final product is in person. But just that little sampling, it really seemed like it was going to be pretty cool, because that was their focus, was we're going to make this EV really kick butt.
Well, maybe they're going to develop something where it has that rumble, as you step on and you accelerate or decelerate or something like that, where it has that effect. I don't know, right? We'll see.
Well, I did hear a while back that there was that they did have some type of sound that would emit from a Challenger that they had developed that was EV. So
Yeah, was it them? Because I swear I've heard of some sort of vehicle that makes that noise, that rumble noise. Oh,
Well,
let's see.
and as far as like hearing any type of sound when you're driving one, the Ford Mach-E, when you drive it, it actually has a setting that you can turn on or off. It's really pretty cool too. It sounds like a jet. So when you go
Wow.
pull out, it has sound that generates through the cabin, and as you accelerate, it's like a jet noise that winds up.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But not much on AI, because I think it's going to be extremely critical with parts distribution, manufacturing, the time it hits the dealership, and notifying, the guest, the consumer, etc. They didn't talk not much, anything really.
No, they really didn't. But I agree with you. I feel like that is a huge opportunity for parts distribution. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. There's a lot that can be done.
Parts Girl loves that. Come on. Parts Girl's got to love that.
Yeah, I mean, of course I love that. I think there's already AI out there with parts, and
Yes.
I think in a way kind of what PartsEdge does a little bit in the way that we read data. It's kind of, I don't know.
No, you're right.
But I don't want to compare it to AI. I don't want to call it AI because it's not.
Yeah. There's so much different stuff out there that's labeled AI. I heard something really interesting this morning. I think I saw you on there on the Clubhouse thing, Kaylee, and there's don't lead with AI when you're talking to a dealership because it'll so much of it is not really AI, or there's such a little part of it. But when you lead with it, the expectations are starting to crumble, and they say, "Well, I don't really know about that." Do you dabble with any of that? Do you have any of that in the stores that you oversee? You've been in the fixed operation side of things for a long time, Rusty.
Yeah, I've been doing this for about 25 years now. No, actually, I can't say that I see a lot of AI being utilized, unless it's happening and I don't realize it, which would be really impressive because that means it's working really well. But no, I
really
have. Again, I believe that would be a huge opportunity to see something like that being put in place. I've often wondered, is there an opportunity like with 3D printing in the parts side too? Is there a time that we would ever see a manufacturer do something like, I don't know, instead of selling you a part, they sell you a license to print a part, and you can print it and you buy the materials through them or wherever.
Wow.
I'm sure it'd probably lead to, okay, yeah, we sell you the plastic, and then there'd be like another company out there calling you saying, hey, if you buy your plastic from me, I'll send you a boat or something. But
Yeah.
But could you imagine though, if you ever had that, if you had a customer call up and say, hey, I need a widget, and you're able to say, well, hold on just a second, and you log in and you download a print, and then you print one out at that time. Now, of course, there's a lot to that. There's a lot of things that would have to take place. But
Josh just said it's happening in aftermarket.
Joshua Taylor.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's first time I ever heard that. Yeah, that's.
Oh wait, yeah. I was just going to say that's like the future right there, but it's happening.
Yep, there you go.
There you go.
Well, Joshua Taylor would know it. The guy is like,
Yeah, he's a tech.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, you mentioned his door trim parts and plastic pieces. See, that's exactly what I was thinking. Now, wouldn't that be beneficial for inventory?
Yeah, next thing you know, they're going to be printing 3D hearts. I mean,
you never know.
Yeah.
Never sure what the future holds.
Yeah, how do you control that? I don't know.
We could go down a wormhole with that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
So as long as you've been in fixed operations, let's talk about that for a minute. I grew up on the variable side.
Okay.
Many years.
Yeah, pick on Russell. He's on the variable side.
And I get it because I was one of those GMs that we still see out there. 80 to 85% of them grew up on the variable side. They understand enough to be dangerous or deadly, but then they hire somebody and befriend somebody like a Rusty Stewart, right, with all that experience. And things are really starting to change. I am on this side of it now, and I get it. Technology and transparency, and all the things that are taking place here's the word, paradigm shift. I believe that there's a paradigm shift taking place in the next 2 or 3 years. A lot of the stuff we're talking about is going to be accelerated on the fixed operation side of things. I think transparency is obviously very, very important, but we need to take back the, and I say this a lot, but NADA says, Rusty, that for every franchise dealer, there's 16 non-franchise entities salivating, lying in wait. And they've pilfered our business. Hence, we have the repeat, referral, and retention situation. Mm-hmm. But I think we're addressing that in a big way. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that too? Because I'm on the outside and I'm in rooms like these with Kaylee all over the place, and we're surrounded by positive, forward-thinking people. Do you think those things are happening in fixed operations?
As far as there being a paradigm shift where, yes. I think that, yes, it is. And like you mentioned, there's the franchise dealer and there's 16 others that are out there non-franchise salivating. That is so true, because I've experienced that. Similar, even going back to whenever, like in 2008.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was like one day dealers woke up and realized, hey, my front end's not doing so well and I've got a back end now. Well, they were there the whole time, but it became more apparent that they needed them. Ever since then, there's been a different focus on fixed ops.
There has.
And that's a good thing.
It is.
I think that needs to continue. I think it has in a lot of cases. I think in some ways it may have lost some of the attention, but overall I think it's maintained for the most part. And as far as the other 16 that are out there, so I have a lot of history in wholesale parts. Highly competitive. You're out there pushing your brand, and a lot of dealers, they tend to get tied into thinking that their competitor is another dealer selling the same brand. That's not the case. It's actually aftermarket that you're out there competing against. So I was always the one that felt like, hey, yeah, I do want to be the dealer that you're buying from, but the next best thing is, as long as you're buying an OE part. If you're buying, in my case, it was a Ford part. If you're buying Ford or Motorcraft, that's great. I would rather see that, even if it's not being bought from me, than if it was being aftermarket. So, and actually, I got my roots in the aftermarket. The first part of my career was being in the aftermarket at retail auto parts. So that is a huge, huge industry, and they thrive on the OE side, losing interest in cars once they become a certain age. There's the life cycle of a part. That part actually has more than one life cycle. You know, the old Mike Nichols of the day, you mentioned that it had a wave, and when it would get to the top of that wave and fall off, that's when it died. Well, it has two lives because it wears out again. And especially nowadays with vehicles on average being 12 years of age, that's more true now than ever.
Yeah,
we are seeing a third life cycle out of a part. And I've seen it so many times where a manufacturer will discontinue a part because it lost a lot of volume on it. It had that first wave drop.
Sure.
Well, then it's gone. They quit manufacturing it. That's when the aftermarket thrives. They pick it up, they reverse engineer, they make cores, they reman, they do whatever they need to do, but they have that solution for the consumer that has that vehicle that gets on out there to 8, 9 years of age, on out to 12 or older.
Sure.
And that's a $1 billion industry. So yeah, there's a paradigm shift that still needs to continue. There's been one internally, but now there's the external one that needs to take place as well.
It's just not the same as OE, is it?
It's really not. I've even seen times where because OEs they'll contract out a lot of their manufacturing. I've seen the same brand of part that would be engraved on the part itself be in a different box, and it's a different quality because they're held to a different spec when they're manufactured. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure there's some exceptions. I'm sure that there's some that are just like for like. That may be the case. But I've also seen it be, yeah, it says the same name stamped on the part, but it's not the same quality. And even with that, it may not have the same backing. The warranty will be different, not to mention the service level will be different. And I think that's really the determining factor. You can have the same exact product. What separates that consumer, whether or not they buy from you, is the value of it. Yeah. For a lot of people, it's not the price, it's the level of service that goes along with what they're getting. That's what will make that decision time and time again.
Absolutely. That level of service has such tremendous value. It becomes less and less about the price.
Absolutely. Especially when we start talking about like the fleet customer with the $890 RO average.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why it's what it is. It's not because they just want to give us more money because they don't know what to do with the rest of their money. It's because it has a higher value to them because that vehicle is generating income for them. So they don't, for one, they don't want it to break down. So they're willing to do more preventative maintenance to keep that downtime from happening. And then in addition to that, if it does break down, they'll pay a premium to get it back up and running because for whatever they spend to get it running is nothing compared to what it's costing them being down. So there's a huge opportunity with
Absolutely.
that. But overall, it's value. Just like Angela says, we have to sell the value.
And here's Joshua's comment.
OE quality, but aftermarket kits and affordability, and that goes right hand in hand with the value of it. There's a matrix there.
Mm-hmm.
Quality versus the price.
Yep.
There's times that I may actually not go with it, and that's the other thing too. Highest price doesn't mean highest quality either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's times when I'm shopping for tools, I may not buy a Snap-on or a Mac tool. Now, most of the time that's the preference. But I may end up buying a Harbor Freight floor jack instead. Depends on what I'm doing with it. Depends on what my expectation is for it. And the value then changes for what it is to me. If I'm buying it for my house, I'm probably not going to buy a Snap-on jack. I'm probably going to buy a Harbor Freight jack.
Yeah, because, I mean, how often are you going to use it?
Exactly. I don't need it to be the top scale premium quality. It's not getting used as much. And so for me, I tend to go that way.
I love it. Great, great explanation on that. Makes sense. Tremendous sense.
I feel really good about this conversation. Like, we went so many ways, and we're about time. So I want to wrap it up with, if there's anything that Russell, is there any dying question you want to ask Rusty, or Rusty, is there anything you want to add? First, let me ask Russell, any question you want to ask him?
Well, I asked it up front. I thought the most important question was Mickey Mouse there, and you didn't see him, but they were last time. So perhaps Mickey was there with Minnie. No, I was just, it's been really fascinating getting your perspective, Rusty, of what happened. And I'm sure there's a lot more to it. Some of the stuff, it's too diverse topic to talk about, but it sounds overall like it was not just a good experience, but it was an awesome, great, and it's something that you would go back to again next year and promote to everybody else. I heard the same thing. I just haven't heard it, on a show, something like this. But thank you very much for what you shared. It was really intriguing.
Well, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Glad to do so. And yes, I do recommend it.
And I hope that you inspire other fix ops and parts and service people to come on shows like these to share their experience, because this is how we learn, just hearing it from you and going down those different avenues of topics of what we talked about. That's how we learn. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. You got to get out there. You got to get involved, make the industry thrive. It's not just a spectator sport. You got to be involved with it.
That's right.
You get out of it what you put in it.
You heard it here on the Parts Girl. I'm just saying.
Yes, you heard it here. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Rusty. Thanks, Kaylee.
Thank you for having me.